This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, however. We have encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because Joanne's Nutrition World in downtown Fort Pierce presents at this time Joanne's World of Nutrition with Joanne Seeger.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone's having an incredible morning. I have a guest on this morning that, I am so thrilled because so many people, when she comes on to the show, will come in the store and be like, okay, you had this woman on. She was super smart. I think she was a nurse or is a nurse. I think she works for a vitamin company. I think because she is so knowledgeable and she really covers a lot of ground. So we are going to skip the breath work this morning. So the only quick announcement I'm going to make is Father's Day is coming up. What a perfect gift to give him a detox day at the Wellness Center. Remember, only $99. Some husbands have to be dragged with their significant others, but either way, right? Exactly. They think weird things are going to come out of their ears or something, but it's a great gift. And remember, they get the full hour massage, infrared sauna, ion foot detox, PEMF mat, pulse electromagnetic frequency mat. So, if you want a quick tour of the Wellness Center before you buy the gift certificate, I'll take you over there, or my husband, Matthew. But definitely makes a great gift, and no one complains after they come use their gift certificates. They're like, wow, this is incredible. All right, so without further ado, let's get to Cheryl Meyers. And Cheryl, I just would love for you to just take a minute. And good morning. Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, so my friend made the mistake of giving me a hand-me-down espresso maker. And we had just cut out almost 98% of the caffeine out of our lives. And so we're like, well, what would a couple of espressos hurt trying this beautiful machine, right? Whoa. I feel like someone just jolted me. Yeah, incredible. I took extra cortisol rescue this morning just to calm down. So, all right. So, can you please, I don't want to waste any time on there's so much information you always cover, and I'm so thankful for it. But if you can give any new listeners a little bio about yourself so they know who my guest is this morning.
Sure. As you said, my name is Cheryl Meyers, and I'm the head of scientific affairs and education for a company named Europharma. And the brand we make is the Terry Naturally brand, which you find in your store. We have over 140 products in our line, so it's a pretty broad line. We were founded by Terry Limerond, who is an absolute legend and icon in this industry. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. He is amazing. I learned at his feet. Yes. I come from the mainstream medical world, where I worked in mainstream for many years. And then 25 years ago, I had a moment in my life where I wanted to try something completely different. I don't want to say I was burned out. I was always passionate about healthcare, but I just felt that there was something more out there, that there were things that we were missing, other avenues that could help people achieve optimal health. And be careful what you get interested in, because next thing you know, body and soul, you're in that industry. And that's what happened to me. I went to work for Terry Limerond 25 years ago when he was the founder and owner of enzymatic therapy. And when he opened up his new company, Europharma, came over with him as well. So it's been a delight for me to be able to hopefully weave together the things that I know about mainstream medicine and disease with new opportunities that we have with natural interventions that can make a dramatic difference in people's lives.
Wow, you got that down, Pat. That was less than a minute. That was awesome. Okay, so now I hope everyone is convinced to have paper and pen handy for the next 50 minutes. All right, so we picked for the topic today Gamazorb. I have been doing very well with all the Gamazorb products since I went to the last conference and listened to you and Terry. I was just flawed. I don't know if you remember the story at the conference, but when I walked in there, I had an aching tooth. And when you're in this group of, I don't know, there was like a couple hundred of us, right? I didn't want to complain. I wanted to pay attention, but it was throbbing. And you guys gave samples of the CoQ10 and the Curamed chewables with the Gamazorb. So I was like, well, let me start chewing, even though I was like chewing. Oh my gosh, I don't want to chew anything, right? Within minutes, the throbbing stopped. And I always, and the best part about Terry is when you walk up to him, during these conferences and tell him what you think is miraculous, like,
Mhm.
Terry, I did your chewables and oh my God, my pain stopped. It's like, oh, just another day, because just another story. It's like, okay, 3,000 story, but I mean that it was incredible to me because the rest of the thing I used more of the chewables each day of the conference, and I could focus, I could learn. So that's why I picked this topic, because I think even I was leading my customers to believe that if something was chewable, there was no efficacy. I made a mistake with that as far as when it comes to Gamazorb and chewable. So that's why I picked this topic. So can you just teach me, as well as the others listening, why these chewables are different than other chewables?
Oh, absolutely. And you are right. I mean, I know that for example, the gummy worm or gummy bear delivery system or gummies is so super popular right now because they taste like candy because they are candy. And so there is some truth to the fact that when you do a chewable, you're going to get less. So, for example, there's some chewable turmeric on the market that's in a gummy form. You would have to take about a couple hundred of them to equal the amount that you get in one of our curcumin products. So, that the amount is amazingly low. So, as I said, there's just some issues with chewable systems. The other thing that's a challenge with chewable systems is they can be more vulnerable to breakage, to water damage, to excessive exposure to oxygen. So, there are some hurdles. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, there's also some benefits if you have chewables that do what they're supposed to. Number one, they're easier because a lot of people have trouble swallowing. There was a recent survey that found that 30% of adults have either a physiological or psychological issue with swallowing capsules and tablets. And so delivering something in a chewable system can reach more people that maybe really need this medicine, but are so put off or have so much difficulty with pills and tablets that they would otherwise walk away. It's also great for helping kids. When you are dealing with children, they usually do better with chewable system than trying to teach them to swallow a capsule or a tablet. So there's just lots of good benefits to having a chewable system. Now, that's one piece of it. But what we're really here to talk about is something called Gamazorb. And I always laugh a little bit at the name because when you say Gamazorb, it sounds like a Japanese movie monster,
It does.
like Godzilla and Rodan and Gamazorb.
I love the name, though. I
I
love it.
do too. Well, it's memorable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's called Gamazor because it's based on something called gamma cyclodextrin that helps things to absorb. So you shorten it, it's gamma cyclodextrin, absorb. So Gamazorb. That's where the name came from. Now, gamma cyclodextrin sounds like something out of a chemistry experiment, but it is not. It is a compound that is found in plant starches. So when you look at plant starches, these are compounds within the plant, but it is a subset of a starch. So if you took a molecule of a starch and you split it up a little bit, you would end up with some Gamazorb. You would end up with gamma cyclodextrin. So that's a little bit of a simplification, but I just want to reiterate that it's not something unnatural. It's not something Frankenstein. It's not created in a lab. It is actually a natural compound found in plants. Now, there's 4 kinds of cyclodextrins, creatively named alpha, beta, delta, gamma. So this technology of working with cyclodextrins to boost absorption has been around for almost 100 years. The pharmaceutical industry has used beta cyclodextrin to enhance the absorption of pharmaceutical products. So it's not a technology that's unknown. The problem is that the beta cyclodextrin has a very small carrying capacity. And more recent experiments have found that the gamma form has a much larger carrying capacity. So the more recent studies on gamma cyclodextrin have found that it is particularly useful for absorption and works better than the other forms. So, little quick tutorial on cyclodextrins. So, how do cyclodextrins work? So, I asked patients and consumers to envision a piece of elbow macaroni. So, elbow macaroni is a tube. It's got an inside and an outside. Imagine that one end of the elbow macaroni is a little bigger than the other end, and there, voila, you have the chemical structure of gamma cyclodextrin. Now, the unique thing about this is the outside of the macaroni loves water. Loves water. That's called hydrophilic. It loves water. The inside of the macaroni tube loves fat soluble compounds. They call that lipophilic, loving fat, loving the different kinds of compounds that are fat soluble. So if you pack a fat soluble compound like curcumin, like CoQ10, there's a couple of others out there. Quercetin is fat soluble compound, berberine, etc. You pack that into these little macaroni pieces. When you swallow them, the outside of the macaroni tricks the body into thinking that the inside of it is water soluble as well. So it floats along, it attaches to your intestinal wall where absorption takes place, and you get a much enhanced absorption. One human study on gamma cyclodextrin delivery of coenzyme Q10 found that it was 7 to 8 times better absorbed than just plain CoQ10. So you really get a nice boost of these compounds that you often have to take very high dosages of because so little is absorbed. Now, the other thing that GammaZorb does is because it's packing these things into these little macaroni tubes, it masks strong flavors. So curcumin does not have a bad flavor, but it has a pretty potent earthy flavor. Ginseng, we have a chewable red ginseng product.
That's my favorite.
Oh, I love that.
Love
it's a great flavor. But I have tried, I was working with a scientist from Belgium who was visiting the United States, and he had a packet of powder of the ginseng that we use in our formulations. And he said, sometimes I just drink this in water. And I said, you do? He said, would you like to try some? I said, I would, because I'm a curious person. It was dreadful. It was so bitter and murky and dusty tasting. And I was like,
bitter as andrographis.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Wow.
So it was not as, but it was pretty bad. So when Terry said, "Hey, we're going to do a chewable formulation," I thought, "Okay, Mister, I'm eager to see what this turns out like." But utilizing that GammaZorb system not only dramatically boosts the absorption, but it masks that bitterness. So it's a twofold utilization for using this system. So Terry has, in his formulations, incorporated that in to several of our chewable products that are chewable tablets. They're not gummies, they're tablets that all have a good flavor because the bitterness or whatever negative flavor impact the raw material might give is somehow, it's kind of masked a little bit. And we also have it does not have to be in a chewable formulation to work. We also have it in a couple of our products that are in capsules as well. So of course, if it's in a capsule, it's not in there to mask flavor, it's in there to boost absorption.
May I ask, Cheryl? I didn't get a chance to ask you guys at the conference. Why didn't you make berberine into a chewable?
That's a good question. I am not 100% sure why we didn't. We didn't have a lot of demand for berberine as a chewable. And, there are some additional challenges with berberine. So who knows if that's something that people are interested in. Terry is always creating new products. So if that's something that we get a lot of requests for, we'll absolutely try to put that into a chewable system as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I figure because I was mentioning last week on the show that I'm kind of becoming a little bit of I'm having pill fatigue, and I'm nowhere near the amount of pills Terry takes a day. My husband's closer, but it's still just like I love these chewables because it's just after I eat and I'm about to take my regimen, I like doing the chewables. I almost feel like they're dessert, It's like they're so yummy, and yeah, I'm just really having some pill fatigue. So
Right. Well, my youngest son, Nicholas, is 23 years old, perfectly fit. I mean, he works out, lifts weights, runs, I mean, doesn't have an ounce of extra body fat on his body.
For him. That's
Perfect
awesome.
vital signs, everything, the flower of youth. And he started taking my CoQ10. And I said, why are you taking my CoQ10? I mean, I think it's something that almost everybody could utilize, but of all people, I don't think you need CoQ10. And he said, but it tastes so good.
I totally get it. Like everyone just has such a unique flavor.
Uh-huh.
And if someone is listening right now, I have samples of these chewables at the store. Eurofarmer, Terry is just so generous with all samples. I mean, a money back guarantee. So if you are curious about any of these that Cheryl has already mentioned, come in the store, talk to Matt, grab a sample. I had one gentleman yesterday took the red ginseng sample. He came back, I think it was like 12 minutes later, and says, "Oh my gosh, how do I already feel this?" And he bought the bottle. I'm like, I know, this stuff is awesome.
It is awesome. So when you think of Gamazorb, it's our trademarked way that we utilize gamma cyclodextrin in a variety of products with unique blends and unique technologies in order to boost absorption. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about the Terry Naturally line is we don't just look at what's going into the product. We think out further. What are we going to put in the product that we make sure it's stable and at full potency when you purchase it? What are we going to put in the product so that when you use it, it's going to yield up its nutrients exactly as we expect it to and provide you with the health benefits that you paid for. And that's one of the things I appreciate is that we don't just look at, hey, what can we slap on the label, but how is this going to work? And that's one of the reasons that so many of our products have been used in published human clinical trials, including the curcumin, including the CoQ10, including the HRG80 red ginseng. They've been used in clinical trials by researchers because they know they work.
I love it. I love it. And I have been getting all the sheets of all the recent research, and it just blows my mind. I feel like, especially, well, I know you're going to cover each one at a time, so I'm going to let you go in the order you would like to speak, but I pretty much have stories already about so many of them with different customers telling me just miraculous stories about each chewable. But I'll
Mhm.
let you go on in your order. I won't throw you off.
Well, let's start with the one that's not a chewable. There's two that are not chewables, and that's berberine. The berberine Met X it stands for metabolic syndrome. And when we look at the health of America today, I would hazard a guess that more than half of people over the age of 40 are dealing with metabolic syndrome. It is a disruption that I describe as a train. Imagine a train going along and it has several cars and one of the cars goes off the tracks. Well, when that railroad car goes off the track, it starts to pull the other cars of the train off with it. So the engine is working harder and harder to try to drag these things along, but eventually the engine's pulled off the tracks as well. That's exactly what happens with metabolic syndrome. The first thing that starts to happen is that your body doesn't utilize sugar properly. It loses its ability to get sugar into the cell so it can be burned for energy. So you get this imbalance, this metabolic imbalance, where the blood sugars get higher, but the cells of your body are actually starved for energy because your body cannot get the sugar into the cell to be burned for energy. And if you have extra sugar in your bloodstream that is not burned for energy, guess what? Your body thinks you don't need it. So it's going to put it in the bank. And the bank in our body is our fat. So it makes more and more deposits in the bank, more and more deposits in our fat cells, in our adipose tissue, so that we can use it later because it doesn't think that we need it right now, when in fact our cells are some of our cells are even dying because they're not getting nourished. So they call that insulin resistance, that you cannot get the sugar from your bloodstream into your cells. Now, I'm not talking sugar from a candy bar. I'm just talking about the regular sugars that you eat in your diet and that get converted into sugars for energy, because that's what our cells burn, not just for us to have energy, go rollerblading and disco dancing, but it is for our cells to do the cell job. It's for the bone cell to be the best bone cell. It's for the lung cell to do the best job of oxygen exchange. It's for the heart cell to pump. So all of our jobs, all of our cells in the body have a job. And if you don't have sufficient energy, just like anybody trying to do a job, it's going to slack off. So when you start to have that, then you start to get abdominal obesity. Sometimes men will call it a spare tire. Sometimes women call it a donut. I don't know. Is that a little bit too, is that problematic that men call it a spare tire, women call it a donut? I don't know if that's a gender problem or not, but I've seen it called both. But you start to get weight around your middle, and that is the worst kind of fat to accumulate. Now, none of us wants to have excess fat on our bodies, but if it's on your hips and on your thighs, it's hard to lose, but it's not what we call metabolically active. It's not going to very dramatically interfere with your health. But once you start getting that extra around the waist, they call that visceral fat. That is easier to lose, but it causes the most disruption in your body. All of a sudden, your cholesterol is going to get out of balance. Now, I'm not a believer that cholesterol has to be treated. That, oh my gosh, if you go a bit over 200, you're in terrible straits. Half of heart attacks happen to people whose cholesterol is in the quote normal unquote level. But I do believe that it should be in balance. You should have high levels of HDL, the good cholesterol, and lower levels of LDL, which is the cholesterol that has the more potential to cause problems. And then that ratio gets out of whack. You start to have some irritation in the lining of the blood vessels, and you have extra weight now on the body. So the blood pressure starts to go up. So you see how it's the trains falling off the train track? It's like you start to have one car go off the train track, and now it's pulled everything else off. In order to deal with this, you can take products for diabetes or prediabetes. You can take products to help with visceral obesity. You can take products to boost HDL cholesterol. You can take products to reduce triglycerides. You can take products to reduce high blood pressure. And there are effective products for all of those things. However, you need to address the underlying train wreck, which is called metabolic syndrome. And that's where berberine shines, is because it gets to the root of the problem. One of the issues in metabolic syndrome is you have a reduction in, we don't have to remember all these names, but there's some compounds in the body called AMPK that plays a role in energy production. And that starts to become diminished. Berberine pushes it up. They did a study of 24 people with metabolic syndrome. It was a 3-month study. And they saw a significant reduction in their body mass index, their waist size, and their glucose levels. Additionally, they saw a 42% reduction in triglycerides, 6% reduction in blood pressure, and my favorite, a whopping 20% reduction in insulin resistance. That's the problem of sugar trying to get into the cell to be burned.
Cheryl, those are
yes.
incredible numbers, but we do have a caller. You ready for a phone question?
You bet.
All right. Good morning, John. How are you this morning?
Okay, good morning, Joanne. Yes, and I guess the spare tire, I guess, is a lifesaver. Not really, but I had a question. I have a friend of mine. She also mentions a lot about supplements, and I guess I've been always kind of leery as far as what actually works and what doesn't. She had sent me something here recently. It was called Reel, REEL, by Alpha Vedic, and it was supposed to be something that to help increase short-term and long-term memory for the brain. And as somebody as myself that's not so versed on supplements, I'm always kind of apprehensive. I was just wondering what your take was on that, and also as far as the CoQ10. I had a friend that was in his 80s or 90s years ago, and he always mentioned I wouldn't say push that, but he always advocated it pretty much. So
Right.
I was just wondering what your thoughts are on these supplements for like brain. It says increase short-term and long-term memory. I mean, I guess, since that's in your area, I was
So,
just curious
John,
what your view might be on that.
I am thrilled that you brought up this question, but we have Terry himself that's going to be on the radio in 2 weeks from today, and the topic is going to be about brain health and cognition. So I am gonna just pause this question for 2 weeks, but I think Cheryl's
Okay.
going to cover CoQ10 in details because that is definitely one of my favorites of the Gamazorb line. So if you want to listen offline and just, I think she'll cover CoQ10. And as far as that other product goes, I can look into it further, and you can give me a call at the store, 464-3598. I love researching products that I don't know about and give you feedback. How does that sound? Cheryl, sound good?
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Sounds
Joanne.
great.
Yeah, and I'll definitely make sure in 2 weeks that I shall be listening.
All right. Thank you, John. Have a great day.
Okay, God bless. You
Okay,
too.
God bless.
Bye-bye now.
But John has a point. There are a lot of people that are looking for memory support, short-term memory, long-term memory, word searching. As you get older, you have a little trouble finding the right word or finding the right name for the right person. And there are products that can help, but you're right. There's also a lot of disinformation out there. People that tell a fantastic story but don't actually deliver the goods. But there are supplements that can be useful. So there is hope. You just need to get connected to things that have published human clinical trials, specifically on those ingredients or on that product, so that you know that you're getting something that will be beneficial for you.
Love it. All
All
right.
right.
So we were talking about the
All
berberine,
right. So
which is of
berberine is,
course famous
yep,
on TikTok right now.
is it?
Everyone's asking, oh my gosh, Cheryl, they're comparing it to Ozempic and
Oh, well, it
outperforming
kind of works a
performance.
little bit the same way.
Right, but
Yeah.
they're wow, yeah, it's like the buzz in the younger generation, it's all a buzz.
Hmm.
So I love it though.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. I would never pitch it for weight loss because I think that's unfair to people. I hate those products that say lose 20 pounds in 20 days, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I will say that if you are at a place in your life, which it used to be older people, but now insulin resistance is cropping up even in childhood, which just is awful. I mean, you've got 12-year-olds out there that are starting to struggle with their blood sugar levels. So if you are starting to have issues with your blood sugar levels, well, number one, of course, eat a healthier diet. Shop the periphery of the grocery store.
Yeah.
Fruits and vegetables. Put more fruits and vegetables in your life. Healthy grains. Put all those good things in your life and try to step away from some of the processed foods. But also, berberine at any age can be really useful for treating that underlying cause of all these issues.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All
So
right,
let's
what's next?
let's move on to CoQ10. So CoQ10 is one of I sound like a mom with a lot of kids. Which one do I love the most? I love them all. I especially love CoQ10 because I think that when we look at supplements, there are some supplements that can help almost everything. It sounds like snake oil, but it's not. It's the fact that CoQ10 works on a cellular level. So if you have cells in your body, which we all do, and if you have a problem, which many of us do, improving the health of those cells is going to improve the problem, period. So CoQ10 is a part of many, many, many of the protocols that I work with. Now, to explain CoQ10, when we look inside of our cells have an engine, just like a car has an engine. So for the cell to run, for the cell to do its job, it has to have the engine running. It needs energy. So you have to fuel the engine. That's where the sugar comes into the cell. That's where insulin resistance interferes with energy production. So now you got the sugar in the cell. It's fueling the engine. But CoQ10 has to be present because it's like a spark plug. It triggers the reaction. And it also helps to remove some of the waste materials from the cell. So when you do not have enough CoQ10 on board, you can put in all the fuel you want, you can have all the engines you want, but you ain't going nowhere because you don't have a spark plug. You're not initiating that reaction. That's why they call coenzyme Q10 a rate limiting molecule for energy production within the cell. Now, every single cell has an engine because every single cell needs energy. Some cells, like our heart cells, have enormous numbers of engines in every single cell because it needs so much energy. The early work on CoQ10 was improving heart function, and that's still one of the mainstays. But there are so many other ways that CoQ10 can help as well. Now, you might say, well, why are people experiencing all these drops in CoQ10? Why aren't we making as much? Well, I can always blame a couple of the usual things. Number one, aging process. The aging process, as we get older, we make less CoQ10. That's just the way it is. Number two, people carrying extra weight around. We have a lot of individuals that are overweight and obese. This takes a toll on the liver. The liver starts to develop fatty liver or starts to head down, starts to have fatty liver deposits or goes full out into non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. If your liver isn't working right, you're not going to make CoQ10 correctly. So you can see where it's like the universe is ganging up on us to have not enough CoQ10 on board to have the optimal amounts of energy in our cells. Now, if that wasn't enough, there's one other thing that dramatically reduces CoQ10 in the body, and those are drugs that lower cholesterol. We call these drugs statin drugs because their generic name ends with statin, like simvastatin and lovastatin, but they're called things like Zocor and Mevacor, and so you've known them by different names. But drugs that reduce cholesterol block a pathway, which is also the pathway that your body uses to make CoQ10. Researchers have found that after 30 days of use of a cholesterol drug, there's a 51% decrease in blood levels of CoQ10. Is that ridiculous, or is that ridiculous?
That is ridiculous.
It's huge reductions. So anyone that's on a cholesterol lowering medication, if you have to be on it, I'm not going to argue with you and your doctor. That's up to you to decide. However, you absolutely must start taking CoQ10 every day, or you're going to put yourself at risk for so many different things: muscle pain, brain fog, diabetes. When you take cholesterol lowering drugs, it increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. Heart failure. I know you take the statin drugs, you take the cholesterol drugs to prevent heart attacks, but they can weaken the heart. Well, the statin drugs don't, but by diminishing CoQ10, it weakens the heart muscle. Then you end up in a situation called heart failure a couple of years later. You've got to get the CoQ10 on board to help with that, because when you don't have enough on board, you're really going to struggle. So you can use it for a wide variety of things. There's a great study, for example, on migraine headaches and coenzyme Q10. 300 milligrams a day reduces the occurrence and severity of migraine headaches by as much as 50%. So if you're a frequent migraine sufferer, I'd be getting CoQ10 on board. Kidney failure or low kidney function, liver issues, poor liver function. The list goes on and on, the ways that you can use CoQ10 and for the brain as well. I mean, there's, imagine how much energy our brain cells have to manufacture to be the computer that runs our entire body. So putting in CoQ10 is always a good idea. The chewable form, you get 100 milligrams in a chewable tablet, but remember, the absorption is about 8-fold. So it's more like 800 milligrams of CoQ10. That's a very plentiful dose. In fact, if you are not struggling with a specific problem, you can certainly break this tablet in half and take half a tablet a day if you like. It is just a wonderful thing to use for your health. Also, when you chew it, you bathe your mouth in CoQ10, just as you explained when you had the problem with your tooth. But it's also really good. It helps with gum disease as well. So you get the twofer on that one. You get to bathe your mouth in CoQ10, and then you get the systemic benefits from swallowing it.
I love it. Yeah, I always picture my gums getting healthier and healthier with every bite. It's incredible. And I know that there are a lot of Western, like Chinese medicine always correlates oral health with heart health. Mm-hmm. So the stronger you make your gums, the better.
Absolutely.
I believe. Yes. Beautiful.
Because the chronic infection of the gums leads to a chronic inflammatory process in the body that can be damaging to blood vessels and to the heart. And if some of the infection in the gums, if it's chronically infected, like when you have periodontitis or periodontal disease, can actually get in the bloodstream and cause some issues with the heart. So keeping your gums healthy, absolutely an important thing.
Love it. Wow, that's great information. All right, which one's next?
Curamed.
Yay!
Curamed is our the number one best-selling brand of curcumin on the market, and that's in a field of over 1,100 other products according to SPINS data. And there's a reason. It's because it works. People get results. It's the most clinically studied enhanced absorption curcumin in the world. We're up to 85 published studies now, 40 of them human clinical trials on everything from major depressive disorder to fatty liver disease to cancer to brain health, like for cognitive changes associated with aging. The list just goes on and on and on, the ways that you can use. This is another one like CoQ10 where it works at such a specific level in the body, this on inflammation and oxidative stress, that you can use it. I think we could play a game. I bet we could not come up with a disease or injury that would not benefit from the use of curcumin. I personally believe that every kid that graduates, we should be handing them at 18, handing them a bottle. Take the Curamed chewable. That's even easier, right? Handing them a bottle, and I bet if they took one dose a day, that they would increase their lifespan on average by about 10 years, because curcumin deals with the three major prongs of chronic disease and aging. Number one, chronic inflammation. We all have some level of inflammation, and that's normal. But if it starts to get too high and it starts to become a chronic issue, it can cause a lot of damage, not just to our joints, but to our blood vessels and to our brain. High levels of inflammation in the brain are associated with major depressive disorder and later development of Alzheimer's disease. Number 2, oxidative stress. That's when you're exposed to free radicals, which we're exposed to all the time, and they come into your body and they damage the DNA. Well, when we use Curamed, well, it's like putting a shield around your DNA, and the problematic free radicals bounce off, so they don't get a chance to get into your DNA and cause damage. We don't want our DNA to be damaged because that's part of the aging process, and also contributes to chronic diseases, shortens the lifespan, and also damage to DNA is a cancer risk. So we want to have something on board that has a huge ability to keep our DNA from being damaged by free radicals. And the third prong of aging itself and chronic diseases is our exposure to toxins. We can control some of that. We cannot control all of that. You don't know what you're, exposed to as you walk down the street or fly in an airplane or visit a vacation spot or go into your backyard. We just don't know. So our liver takes care of most of our toxins, and it grabs them out of the bloodstream and shoots them out the intestines so that we don't have a high toxic exposure. Now, if your liver's a little bit sluggish, if your liver's not working quite like it ought, it's going to be slower at getting rid of the toxins. The longer toxins stay in your body, the more damage they can do. You want to get them out of your body lickety split. You want them out quick as quick can be. So that's why when I look at curcumin and why it's beneficial for everything, it's because it touches every one of those things. It improves your detoxification processes and speeds it up a little bit. It is a dramatic influence on reducing oxidative stress and the best herbal I know of to reduce inflammation. So that's why it has studies on everything. I mean, I said our product has over 85 studies now. But when you look at curcumin as a whole, when you go on to the National Institutes of Health electronic database, PubMed, when we go on there and do a search for curcumin, you're going to get like 19,000 studies that have been done. So this is a backbone of almost every protocol that we have for individuals that are struggling with significant illness or even want to take a little bit every day because they want to be able to do the tango when they're 99 years old. This is a fantastic way to deliver it too, because again, the chewable tablet, you're bathing the mouth in curcumin and a potent anti-inflammatory, and then you swallow it and you get systemic benefits as well.
Cheryl, there are some people, and I love your explanation, that still get a little confused by sprinkling a little turmeric on their salads and their, food versus taking a Curamed product. Could you spend a moment describing the difference?
Absolutely. And that's one of the questions I get asked all the time. Turmeric is a food and it's delicious. And if you like turmeric, I hope you cook with it every single day. It does have some health benefits, just like eating an apple a day has health benefits. So it's a food, it's a healthy food. It is not the medicine. The medicine in turmeric is called curcumin, and it's the pigment that actually gives turmeric its brilliant yellow-orange color. But only 2% to 5% of turmeric is actually curcumin. So when you take 1,000 milligrams of turmeric, let's say you sprinkle a half teaspoon on your oatmeal in the morning, you're getting about as little as 20 milligrams, of curcumin, and that not very well absorbed. So that's like spitting in the ocean to raise the tide. You are not going to get where you want to be medicinally using that low of a dose. So when we look at moving up, we look at extracting the curcumin from the turmeric and delivering that as a natural medicine. That too is not very well absorbed. So early studies on curcumin use 20 to 24 capsules a day to try to get enough into the bloodstream to have some kind of measurable difference. Well, nobody's going to stick with 20, 24 capsules a day, right? I always say maybe if they're dipped in Godiva dark chocolate, I will stick with it then. But for the most part, people talk about your pill fatigue, right? So the race was on to find ways to boost the absorption of curcumin. Now, there's a variety of ways to do that, but the way we chose, we think is the best. And that's using compounds from the turmeric plant itself. So we use turmeric essential oil. So when we talk about our Curamed products, they are not, I always tease our marketing people and say, our Curamed is not curcumin. It's an extraction that is curcumin and another extraction that's turmeric essential oil. So it's two different extractions from turmeric. And then we put them back together again in a patented process where each little flake of curcumin is embedded with a tiny little bit of turmeric essential oil. So the absorption booster is carried within each flake of the curcumin. It's the only one on the market where the enhanced absorption comes from the plant itself. Now, this is much better absorbed, about 700% better absorbed than plain curcumin. So the studies on our Curamed are generally on 2 capsules of our Curamed 750 per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. So that's the format that they were used in the published human trials. So that's a lot easier to take than 20 to 24 capsules a day to try to swallow those down, and yet still having amazing benefits. Our curcumin has been compared to diclofenac sodium, ibuprofen, celecoxib, which are prescription and over-the-counter nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and found to equal or exceed their benefits without the adverse effects. It's been compared to fluoxetine, which is Prozac, found to work as well as for major depressive disorder without the adverse effects, and can be used in conjunction with an antidepressant for slightly better benefits. So I'm not telling the people that are listening to go toss your prescriptions in the trash and switch to all natural, but it is a decision that if you want to explore, talk to your healthcare practitioner about it and look at what are some of these things that might be able to help me with the benefits, and especially if you're dealing with a lot of side effects.
Wow, that was fantastic. Okay. I don't even want to say a word. I know, yeah, take some water. That's incredible. I've always loved Curamed. I've never missed a day taking it, never once.
Me either.
Absolutely, yes, I love it. The whole family uses it. Now that you have the chewable, it's pretty much anyone can use it. I mean,
Mhm.
anyone, no matter how the age or anything. And I love that it doesn't give any of us tummy trouble.
No.
So it's great. It just feels right and it always makes me feel better. So thank you for promoting it because it's such a great thing. And once again, we have samples, money back guarantee, an amazing company that stands behind every claim they make. I love you guys for that. So thank you. All right, we got about 10 minutes. Where do we go now?
Well, we've got 2 more to cover, so I'm gonna speed up.
All right, won't say a word. Go for it.
No, no, no.
No, it's okay with that.
All right. The next one is the HRG 80 Red Ginseng Chewable, which you and I can both say is delicious.
Love it.
It is the problem with ginseng. Ginseng is one of the most powerful adaptogens on the planet. Ginseng is so valued in Asia that an old ginseng root, the longer they stay in the ground, the older they get, the more powerful they become. So if you've got a 20, 25-year-old ginseng root, it's worth its weight in gold and jewels. There was a time in Chinese history where only the emperor and his family was allowed to have access to ginseng. It's great for everything. It's great for energy, not just the energy, as I said before, to go disco dancing or rollerblading, the energy for you to do what you need to do, the energy for your heart to pump, the energy for your lungs to breathe, the energy for, your liver to detox. Your body needs energy, and this helps to provide it. It also helps you to recover. So if you are hit by a car, and you're in physical therapy, if you are coming off of chemo or radiation therapy, if you've had a stroke and you're going into rehab, your body needs an enormous amount of energy and stamina to heal. And that's where red ginseng comes into play, is because it can do that. Now, why isn't red ginseng as popular as it used to be? Well, because we loved it to death. The best ginseng is the wild crafted, been in the earth 20, 25 years. That's almost impossible anymore because it's all been harvested. There's still some out there, but you can't really make a business out of it. So they've moved to growing ginseng in fields. And cultivated ginseng is not a very healthy way to go for 2 reasons. Number one, they're not going to wait 25 years to harvest a crop. They harvest it after about 7 years, which is when it has minimal amount of the key compounds. And number two, if you can only harvest a crop every 7 years, you're going to spray the heck out of it. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, because you can't financially afford to lose any of it. So red ginseng raw materials are some of the most toxic, adulterated compounds out there. A lot of it isn't even allowed into the United States because they catch it at the border because of the high level of toxins, although some of it still manages to squeak through. So that's a problem. And it's also bad for the environment to cultivate ginseng because it pulls so many nutrients from the ground that after you've grown a field of ginseng, after you harvest it, you can't grow anything else there for a while. So then you have to go chop down some more trees because you have to plant it on the forest floor because ginseng thrives in the forest. Cut down another several hundred acres of trees and plant your ginseng. Wait another 7 years. You see where this is going. It gets to be unsustainable. So this very smart group of folks in Belgium, these agronomists, developed a system of growing ginseng hydroponically. So they give it perfect nutrition so it grows and it thrives. But then they do something unique and special. It's a process that took them 7 years to develop, in which they stress the plant at intervals unexpectedly, because it's the stress on the plant that makes the muscles. When ginseng's in the wild and an insect starts to chew on its leaves, or it suddenly it's very, very cold outside, that stresses the plant and it makes more muscles to resist. Well, if you don't stress the plant, you're not going to get any of the muscles. You're not going to get the strength. So they intermittently stress the plant so that by the time it's harvested, you have a whole root ginseng extract that is the equivalent in rare noble ginsenoside content of 20-year-old wild-crafted ginseng. It is a powerhouse. If you've tried ginseng before and been disappointed, try this. This is the kind of ginseng emperors used to take, because it's that concentrated. It's that good. You can use it if you just want to have more energy and stamina throughout the day. I had to go to a big medical conference last week. It was a functional medicine conference. The days were really long and there was things to do at night as well. I took my chewable red ginseng tablet every morning. It's not a stimulant. It's not like coffee. It doesn't hit right away usually, although some people swear they feel it right away, especially in the chewable form. But you'll just notice a couple hours later, you're not as tired. You don't have the after lunch slump. You get home at night from work and you don't want to just go flop in a chair. You feel like, hey, maybe I'd want to go for a walk, or maybe I want to do something. It just gives you that extra stamina. Caffeine works in your brain by blocking the receptors for fatigue molecules. So your body makes these molecules that trigger your fatigue response, right? Well, caffeine blocks those. That's why you feel more energy with caffeine. But when it wears off, all of that tsunami of fatigue molecules comes rushing in. And so that's when you get the crash. Ginseng does not do that. It's not a stimulant. It works at the other end of the equation. It keeps you from getting fatigue and making fatigue molecules in the first place. So when it wears off, you don't get a crash. You just have sustained energy and stamina throughout the day.
Wow, that's incredible. And I definitely I made the mistake one time of taking 2 chewables. And so I always advise, unless you're ready to clean out your whole garage at like 11 o'clock at night, just take one.
Yes, because believe it, we just had a clinical study that was published not that long ago on chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and post-viral fatigue syndrome using our red ginseng. Excellent, excellent results. The 60.1% of people who had a significant reaction, they noticed things like 73% improvement in stamina, 60+% improvement in energy, but a 43% improvement in sleep quality. And so people often say, if you take too much, you're not going to sleep. It's not because it's keeping you awake. It's because you just have that much energy. You're not ready to go to sleep yet. So that's why I say, well, start out, start out with half a tablet or a tablet, see how you feel with that, and adjust up, adjust down until you get to where you want to be.
Yep, I totally understand that. Yep, it's different than caffeine. It's so much better. So much
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know we only just have a couple minutes. I just want to mention quercetin, because allergies are terrible this year. They are reporting that allergies, the pollen season has been expanded by 30 days. So we're getting an extra month, 2 weeks prior and 2 weeks after. We're getting an extra month of pollen exposure. And then plus you've got people that are allergic to dust, or people that are allergic to cats, or whatever, animal dander, whatever the case may be, or, hay fever, whatever. So quercetin is the best allergy product I know of. You can use it for other things. Yes, absolutely. It's great for your immune system. It has some anti-cancer activity. It improves survival in an animal study of of animals that were infected with H1N1 influenza. It has great antioxidant capacity, but I really, really love its benefits for allergies. It helps to block histamine release. Now, when you take, I hate allergy medicines because allergy medicines are antihistamines and they are generally what you call anticholinergic drugs. Anticholinergic drugs deplete choline from your body. And after about 3 years of consistent use, have by that time increased your risk of Alzheimer's disease by more than 70%, because your brain needs choline to make acetylcholine, which is an important component of brain function. So I don't like anticholinergic drugs. If you take a Benadryl because you have a bee sting, sure, you're going to be fine. I'm not talking about that. But if you're using these allergy drugs, like some people use like Tylenol PM and Advil PM, the PM part is an antihistamine, anticholinergic drug, diphenhydramine, sold under the brand name Benadryl. You're just depleting your body of choline every single night. That's why I love quercetin, is it works differently in the way that it keeps histamine from being created in the first place. It is not an anticholinergic drug, and you don't have all these additional risks with its use. 1 tablet a day is fine for most people. Some people increase it to 1 tablet twice daily if they're not getting a handle on it. Now, this is not going to work immediately. You can't be all stuffed up and sneezy and your eyes watering and you take this and it all goes away. But stick with it for about a week because it works at the other end of the equation. It works at preventing the histamine from being created. You're going to feel magnificent benefits. I guarantee it.
Wow, Cheryl, you are absolutely amazing.
Aw.
Really, and I'm glad I'm already taking all these products because if not, I'd be running out of here to open bottles. So you covered it so thoroughly. So all the Gamazor products are at my store, and we always have specials for Terry, as well as the samples, free literature. We have the books. I have Terry's new book, Beat Cancer Naturally. So that book is incredible. Oh my gosh, love it. So hopefully Terry will discuss that in a couple weeks when he's on the show. Any closing comments other than thank you so much? I am so thankful that you spent the morning with us.
Oh, well, I've really enjoyed it. One of the things I'm often asked, if you could only do one thing to improve your health, what would that be? And they're usually thinking, what supplement would I recommend? But my answer is develop a relationship with a high quality dietary supplement store. Go to a health food store, find somebody who's knowledgeable, find somebody who's investigating these products. They're not putting crap on their shelves. They're putting things on there that have legitimate uses and can help guide you, because it's confusing. And there's thousands of products, tens of thousands of products out there.
Wow, that's
You need
perfect.
some help. You need some
Thank
help.
you,
I can't keep up.
Cheryl.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Next week, Bert's on with me, so don't miss it either. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
You've been listening to Joanne's World of Nutrition, brought to you by Joanne's Nutrition World, US 1 at Orange Avenue, across from City Hall. Archives of this show are on YouTube under WPSL TV. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast and webcaster to the world.